Another episode of Men on Track, episode 13.
13.
The Corbomite maneuver. And I don't, did I say it right? Corbomite? Corbomite?
Corbomite.
Corbomite?
Corbomite.
Corbomite. Everybody say Corbomite.
Episode 11.
Corbomite.
No.
13 of Men on Track, episode 10 in season 1.
Yes. Originally aired November 10th, 1966.
Make it clear to the people.
Is this
You didn't
season?
let me.
Is this season 2 of Men on Track though?
It depends on how many episodes per season. Are we
Huh.
at,
Yes,
are we at
this is
10?
season
Are we at
two.
10
This is-
episode season?
We're into another year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. This is year 2.
And this would be episode 2 of season 2.
True.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're doing that. Well, welcome to season 2, episode 2 of Men on Track, Corbomite Maneuver. This is me.
Which is still episode 11 of Star Trek.
It's episode 10.
Episode 10.
11 on Netflix. Because Netflix counts the cage.
Look at you. You just don't even know where you are.
No, I know where I am.
Let me tell them who
Looking
you are.
at my chart.
Let me tell them who you are. Your charts are wrong.
No, there is no wrong in Star Trek.
I am the Admiral, looks good in red, Keith, and I'm here with my captains, Captain Mark Daystrom, who is wrong, and Captain James T. Palpatine, who has wisely stayed out of it. And
The return.
the return from a away mission of Lieutenant Audio Arthur, who we are very glad to have back.
Thanks for having me.
And just so that, we go ahead and acknowledge it, that Audio Arthur in his hiatus was promoted. So now he's Lieutenant Commander.
Oh,
Wow.
yes.
Really?
Well
Yeah.
deserved.
Yes.
Well
Thank you.
deserved.
Yes.
Thank you.
You'll have your own ship one day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
As long as you don't leave that switch to the atomic piles open.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's end of your career. Goes
So-
quick in Starfleet.
It can be instantaneous. So, the Corbomite maneuver. Fan favorite, but we all couldn't quite come to an agreement on where it charted with us. We all like it.
Almost didn't make it.
Yeah.
We watched Corbomite, and then we watched Squire of Gothos.
Yeah. And we almost talked about Trelane.
We almost talked about Trelane.
But having discussed it, we find ourselves dealing with the Enterprise.
Well, when we start to really look at it, there's a lot of interesting things in the Squire of Gothos that's not readily, in Corbomite, that's not readily apparent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Because at first it seems like a one-trick pony.
it does.
Yeah.
Well, it
Yes.
is, but there's a lot of little tricks to the.
Right.
There's a lot of little
Well-
aspects to the trick.
Yeah, what we decided is while the plot itself wasn't earth-shattering, they do a lot of
Thin.
exposition. They do a lot of exposition there that makes it
Thin. The
Makes it
plot
interesting.
Is thin.
not thin, simple.
No. Well, yeah, simple.
It's simple. Thin makes it sound like it's a badly written episode, and it's not. It's not. So simple.
There's just not a lot of meat there.
It's a
It's
a
a peanut
character.
butter and jelly.
It's a character study. It really is.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yep.
You make that sound like a bad thing. You toast the bread. It's a good deal.
Not no toasted bread.
Yeah, toasted bread.
No.
Toasted bread. All right, comment in the comments, toasted bread or not toasted bread. We're gonna have this debate right now. But anyhow, one of the first things that jumped out about me about episode 10, Corbomite maneuver.
Which is season 2, episode 2 of Men on Track.
Yes. By decree. One of the first things that jumped out at me is clearly this was one of the earlier filmed episodes. We know they're not aired in the order in which they're filmed. They haven't got the whole thing figured out yet as far as look and feel of the show. There's some pilot uniforms still running around. Lieutenant Uhura's wearing gold and not red.
Well, Kirk, Uhura, Spock, McCoy, they're all wearing the original
Slightly remodeled, but yes.
the original uniform.
Original uniforms, they don't fit so well.
Uhura's is not form fitting like the red.
No, it's not. But there's a lot of not form fitting on this episode.
Right.
They're utilizing the pilot materials.
Or it looked like they got her in a burlap bag.
Not quite that bad.
And the makeup was not good.
They hadn't figured all that out yet.
No.
Not compared to her red.
That's true. They hadn't figured it out yet. That she wasn't dialed in. And we even noted the displays and the color palette of the bridge and a lot of other things were different.
But the camera angles were interesting in the filming.
Very interesting.
More cinematic.
Yes.
Very
Yes.
interesting, yes.
Yes.
And with the remastered shots of the Enterprise, it's a really cool looking
Ooh la
at.
la.
It's a really cool looking at.
And looking at the ship.
Yeah. And the ship's shown a lot in this episode, which really makes it fun.
It's amazing how we've gone from little toy models that hang by strings to these big, massive models that the Enterprise was,
Yeah, big as this table.
then to 3D imaging of such high quality.
Yeah.
You know, the progression in film, the ability to film.
So what do you prefer? So let's take Blade Runner. So Blade Runner is arguably, if you Adam Savage and his channel, when ILM was doing the original Blade Runner, they were shooting it with multiple camera passes of different models, and you know, I mean, so they built it within the film, and then you see it. Do you prefer that visual to top of the line CGI?
Yes. I prefer practical effects.
It all depends. It all depends on the effect of what you're doing. Ships on today,
They look good.
the 3D imaged ships are far better than any practical model.
I don't know about that. I think with a practical model, you can add a depth of realism that CGI doesn't capture.
When they're done right, I don't think you can.
I think so.
When they're done right, I don't think they can. When you look at some of these films where they're pulling back and they keep pulling back into space and all that stuff, that's all 3D.
I know.
That's all. So the practical models can only get you so far. Now you can intermingle them. And I guess that's what you're trying to say, the intermingling of 3D.
Yeah, the hybrid approach I think is best.
But I don't think okay, let's agree that the hybrid approach probably is the best. But straight practical models versus 3D, 3D is better.
See, I like CGI. I like computer stuff for things that I don't have a preconceived notion of how they look. So if I think about the Balrog in Lord of the Rings, like to do that as a puppet or stop motion animation as a model like that, it wouldn't have worked, and I was perfectly fine with it. I felt the weight of the Balrog when it landed and things like that, that CGI. I think Iron Man when that's CGI, I like that. But anytime you've got human skin and human face,
Yes.
I still think it's horrible.
They're getting better. It's not as good because the skin texture never looks right.
Okay, so yes. So here's what I'll tell you. If I said what's the most recent CGI, what do they call it? Deep fake that they've tried to do is in The Mandalorian with Luke
Skywalker. Yeah.
And I love what they've done with that, but it's bad. It's bad. They still have not, even in Rogue One and things like that, where you got Carrie Fisher's face and they're doing it. It's just like
Princess Leia and Grand
yeah,
Moff
they're just
Tarkin.
like, it's hope. I mean, it doesn't even look like it syncs well. So it's like, I don't want that. But for big characters that I don't know anything about, ships I'm on the fence with. I think a lot of it has to do with how well it's photographed.
Yeah, I think like the remastered Enterprise looks really good, and I've even noticed as we've gone back into these episodes, it looks better in some episodes than in others. Like they were kind of figuring it out.
Right.
In this episode, in Corbomite Maneuver, it looks really solid, but
it looks like really solid CGI.
Whereas in other episodes, they get it looking physical. It has more presence, for lack of a better way to put it.
And I'm gonna get blasphemous here. So J.J. Abrams, when he's doing his ships in the Star Trek movies that he redid,
yeah, they have a physical. presence.
But he does something with the lighting, not his lens flare, but I mean, he makes the starlight kind of really harsh, and then there's a camera shake in there, and then he cuts almost all the audio out. So like you get this sort of I get this stark feeling of space and being outside the ship.
Absolutely.
And it makes it more real.
Yes, he creates the realism through the atmosphere.
Right.
What he does with the sound and what he does with the lighting, absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course, because there is no sound in space.
As far as we know.
No, there's no molecules to move enough for you to register.
We haven't gone far.
Okay.
Maybe we're in a bubble.
I'm not going to debate with you.
So,
but the composite is better. Human flesh, they still haven't gotten right.
They haven't got human
because human flesh has so many imperfections in it that it doesn't cast light back
uniformly.
But what is this tyranny though? That like Tarkin, the guy, they did like a whatever they call it. I call it a deep fake with him.
They CGI'd his.
What would be wrong with just having another actor do it?
Because they got to pay that other actor, and then the other actor gets royalties.
You mean another actor just play Tarkin?
Yeah. Because there's a YouTube channel, I don't know which one it is, where they have the Mandalorian fake Luke,
and somebody did a better job.
They find somebody who looks like Luke and said, "This is our Luke."
Well, what fans have been pushing for, and we're in the wrong universe, guys, but what fans have been pushing for is Sebastian Stan. They think would be a fantastic young Luke Skywalker.
So
they
deep fake.
Well, they better hurry up because he's getting not young.
The whole reason for this conversation is the 3D.
Yeah.
The look of this episode versus the other episodes in the continuum, where they've started to hammer down what the ship, Starfleet, and what the ship and the crew looks like.
Yeah, the look and feel of the series.
Yeah.
This is clearly an early episode, and I kind of like these episodes where they've got some of these little differences, like Uhura's uniform being different, a few other little things. It's one of the things I like about The Cage and some of the other episodes. It's got a freshness or a uniqueness. I think that
Yeah, it does.
Once they hammer it out, you kind of lose that. You kind of lose that to some degree.
It does give you a different feel. That's one thing I used to hate about anime, is that the character was always in the same outfit.
Yeah,
no matter what,
throughout
the whole show, no matter what he was doing, he's in the exact same outfit.
Yeah.
But okay.
Well, and if you know why that is in anime and animation in general, put it in the comments because there is a reason for it.
Yeah.
But so. And again, another difference as we get back in the episode is Spock is still military Navy Spock. He's just yelling commands and using a lot of naval bearing, which kind of fits the look and feel of the show at the time, but they lose it later. He softens that later. He's not so rigid.
Well, there's not a lot of ambient noise on the Enterprise where you have to bellow an order.
No, there's not.
To a guy in a submarine or on a ship where there's a lot of extra noise going on, and you want to make sure that you're heard. Yeah.
Yeah, they mostly do it out of tradition at this point now, even on real ships.
But this is not necessary.
I think it was Nimoy's commitment. I mean, I think he committed very early, really hard, and I think Sir William came along, and then almost like peaked, and then kind of dropped off a little bit towards the end, like. He'll always talk about his commitment to the character and how hard he played it. But I can see differences in Sir Williams from season to season. It almost seems like there's some points where he was working really hard, and then maybe he just made it look like it was easier. But Nimoy always seemed like he was working hard at that character all the time.
It's selling the character.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Because there's a scene where the ship is vibrating, right? They're trying to break away from something, and if you look at Nimoy, he's in the background.
Yeah, he's grabbing on, shaking.
He's bent. He's trying to bench press the console. I mean,
he's
working it. He's working it so hard, and it's a long shot. It's probably like minute and a half, and every time it cuts where you can see him, he's 100% committed.
Right, he's in.
Yeah,
and he sells that moment because it's him doing that really makes you kind of understand that, and the sound effects really sells the idea that the ship's going through some terrible vibrations and is tearing itself apart.
That's true, but he's in the background. It's all these little pieces coming together.
Yes.
That makes it work. Like so many episodes where
Uhura's she did it in this episode.
Uhura's in the background.
Yeah.
But the camera angles
in
this episode was really different.
They were cinematic.
They were cinematic.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, Desilu's going all out here.
Yeah, well, we kind of talked about, we were watching it, kind of explaining it to Arthur. This was a groundbreaking show at the time in a lot of ways. Just things they did that you just weren't seeing on television in 1966. I mean, it was really camera angles, the use of full Technicolor, the palette of the show, everything was very unique. And the things they were addressing, I mean, the multiracial makeup of the crew. Every other TV show was, hey.
Diversity, inclusion, and equity.
Not every other show. Every other show
was lacking.
Every other show was privilege on parade.
No. Stop that. Every other show had a muted palette. But this show was really groundbreaking, and you kind of take it for granted now, because when we grow up, it was reruns on television, and you really didn't have that context. But when you go back and you look at it, there was a lot going on here that had not been done.
I think you brought up something that I can remember as being a kid, is that you really didn't know you didn't know what episodes were going to be on. Now they had TV Guide, but that was when I was a kid. That was for rich people. Like we didn't have TV Guide.
No, we got TV Guide.
You were rich, but
we used the newspaper TV listing,
and they always were not right though.
Yeah,
sometimes they would just say an episode, and
Yeah, well, what I remember is it just said Star Trek was on at 10.
For those of you who don't know what TV Guide is, ask your parents.
I think it's still around for some reason.
Is it really?
I think it's more of a magazine now than actually giving it.
Be that
for
thin.
what? You can just go to cable and go.
I don't know, but I think it's still around.
It'll tell you everything that's coming up.
Somebody comment and let me know if TV Guide's still around. I think it might be.
They probably don't know what TV Guide is.
Well, find out what it is and then let me know what.
I think our Google demographics, I think they know.
They're old enough.
We do pretty well.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Arthur, do you know what Lieutenant Commander?
Yeah.
Do you know what a TV Guide is?
No idea.
There we go.
Back before
You were born.
Mm-hmm.
Back before you could just click on the television and see a guide of 1 million channels.
Yeah.
There was actually a book that you would buy in the store.
Or got shipped to your house.
If you're rich, like
rich people who had subscriptions. That told you what was going to be on TV for the next 2 weeks.
I thought it was weekly.
It was a book.
Wow.
It's a book about that thick.
Wow.
All 10 channels.
Through to the day.
All 10 channels.
And you look up what was coming on, when it was coming on.
Now, there was only about 5 or 6 channels.
Maybe 10.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a weekly publication that told you what was going to be on television.
And then they would have an interview sometimes, or an article.
Articles, yeah.
Lieutenant Commander's thinking like, why? It's only 10 channels. What's the point?
Yeah, right.
It was your only way to know.
And they weren't on 24 hours a day.
There was no internet. There's no way to look up anything.
Yeah, you guys used to have to work pretty hard to be entertained.
You had to know when stuff was coming on.
Right.
Oh, and no on demand. If you missed your show,
it was gone.
You missed your show.
I remember when TiVo and stuff came out. That was my time.
Yeah.
So I was around before on demand.
But before that though, like seriously before that.
Yeah.
If there was some show you were really hot and bothered about, and you weren't home or something happened, sorry, there's no going back.
Well, that was the thing about movies too. The blockbusters would make it to like ABC Movie of the Week
a year later,
2 years later.
But if you liked a movie and it wasn't picked up by the network,
remember,
you'd never see it again.
Remember it. Well, like the treat. I mean, it was kind of a treat. Like in the summertime, ABC would show James Bond movies.
Yep.
All summer long, and like every weekend in the summertime, you knew you could watch a James Bond movie.
Oh, I remember in Detroit, WXYZ, which is Channel 7, they'd have Monster Week.
Yeah.
And it'd be 5 days of like Godzilla,
yeah.
Gamera.
Yep.
Channel 50 had creature feature.
All right, back to men on track.
We've maneuvered away from the Corbomite.
Yeah, let's get back to Corbomite.
All right. So our characters are pushing into deep space. It's mentioned that they are pushing out into where no one's ever gone before. And this is episode 10. This is the first time where they're really like, no one's ever been out here.
Right.
We're the first. So this is a Enterprise, first ship on the scene.
Oh, yeah.
And they're planning on doing some hardcore star mapping. They're planning to get after it and map the area.
But they're into it, a desert in space. There are no stars.
Let's go.
That's the other one.
Ah, that's right.
See
Jeez, OP.
what you did?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I'm sorry.
Focus.
That's good, though.
Focus.
I'm sorry.
No, so they're going to map the area, and they're super excited because they're the first ship on the scene, which, as we know from past episodes of Men on Trek, is not a good thing.
Not a good thing.
But before they can even really get that whole star mapping party started, they are intercepted by an object, a colorful Rubik's cube type thing. Actually, put me in the mind of an '80s video game called Cubert. But
I remember Cubert.
Yeah,
it was hard. It was one of those Donkey Kong games that 90% of the people can't get off the first screen.
Yeah, but they had these colored cubes, and that's what stopped the Enterprise.
Yep.
Kirk needed quarters, but so they're intercepted by a cube, and all attempts to communicate with it fail. There's no response. They determine that it's some kind of automated device.
No.
Spock is at the helm.
It was solid. They didn't know.
They determined it was an automaton at some point, but they couldn't figure out how it worked.
The cube was supposedly solid. They had no idea how it was working.
Right.
They had no idea how it was tracking them.
Right.
Or how it was moving. It just
But it was matching their course and blocking their path.
Yep.
And Spock was at the in command.
Yeah.
Because Kirk was down getting his physical.
And down in sick bag getting worked over by McCoy.
Yeah, he's got to do the shot for women.
With no shirt on.
No shirt.
Oh. Well, they caught him in that rare moment where he was in shape. So they made the most of it.
Did he use the best of it?
Had to make the best of it. But yeah, some fan service for the ladies. Ladies, you need to revisit this episode if you want to see a shirtless captain. Never let it be said that we're not looking out for you. So
what's interesting about this particular scene, and is dealing with the characters, McCoy doesn't care about the red alert so much.
Yeah, there was
is that I've got an opportunity to get my physicals
to
done
get
on
my
the
work
captain.
done. Because usually, what I liked about it even before that was Kirk's on the treadmill basically, and he's like, "You're killing me." And McCoy's turning up the resistance, and Kirk's like, "You're killing me." He's like, "Oh, keep pedaling, quick ride. You're killing me."
Mm-hmm.
That was good byplay between them.
That showed a lot of what goes on in McCoy's head. So the first thing was he wanted to torture the captain a little bit and smiled when it was happening. And then he saw the red alert, and you could just see him go, "I don't care."
He's like, "I'm finishing."
He came out the other side and came back. He goes, "I'm going to finish what it is that I'm doing."
Yeah.
And then he says at one point, if I jumped every time a light was flashing around here, I'd start talking to myself.
And he's talking to himself.
Right.
Yeah. But it's a good character build.
Right. Absolutely. And what I liked about it is because it's not spoken right at that moment. Kirk kind of chews him out later, but McCoy sees the red light, kind of shrugs, lets Kirk finish. Kirk gets up off the table and finally sees the alert light. And he throws McCoy a look like, "What is wrong with you?" And McCoy kind of answers him by saying what Jim said. He's like, "Look, dude, I hardly ever get you down here. I don't care. We're finishing this." And Kirk's not happy about that, but Kirk.
You figure with the sense of urgency that Kirk seemed to have about that red alert, it wasn't, his urgency wasn't so high that he couldn't take a moment and do some pocket coaching on one of his officers. He's like, "You saw that. Why didn't you say something?"
Well, he does that after he goes to the little screen.
After he checks.
Finds out from Spock what was going on.
Right.
And then since it wasn't really pressing.
And it's actually not a red alert because the alarms don't go off. It's just an alert status.
Right. So after he makes sure everything's fine, nothing's pressing, he makes sure he chews McCoy out a little bit, and then he proceeds to make his way to his, or he was initially going to the bridge.
But he checks again, and he says, "Are we really in that much of a jam?" And they go, "No, not really." And he goes, "All right, I'm going to go change."
Right. But he's walking down the hallway with his shirt off.
Yeah. And there's 24 people in the hallway. So what? Meanwhile, though, on the bridge, we have Lieutenant Bailey.
Oh boy, Bailey.
We have Lieutenant Bailey, who's a pre-checkoff navigator, and Bailey's clearly new. He doesn't know that he doesn't know. He's kind of got a mouth on him. He's shooting off his mouth, and he's got a lot of opinions. And
I refer to Bailey as Sulu's tote bag because Sulu carries him
pretty much
the
the
entire
whole time.
episode. Anytime things get rough,
Sulu reaches over.
Sulu's got to reach over there.
So Sulu was off screen going, "Oh, my back hurts.
My back
My back
carrying
hurts.
you.
Tired of carrying you,
Yeah.
Bailey."
Carrying
Oh.
Well, what I like is Bailey tries to lock horns with Spock, and Spock shuts him down hard, and Sulu looks at him like, "You wasting your time."
He'll cut you to pieces.
Well, Lockhorns in Point Bailey makes an excuse, trying to use his human nature as an excuse for his
fear.
For his fear.
That's what it was. He was afraid.
And Spock goes, "Well,
You should get that fixed.
Yeah, you should get that removed.
This doesn't seem like it's
His
working for him.
adrenals.
Yeah,
His adrenals are up. I was excited.
because I'm a human.
Well, he says to Spock, he goes, what happened a little bit earlier didn't mean that I couldn't do my job or that I wasn't in control. It just means I have an adrenal gland.
And Spock says,
That's the way I heard him say it.
Spock says, "You need to get that fixed. It's not working."
Must be inconvenient. Get it cut out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nobody yelped or spoke up other than Bailey.
Yeah, Bailey had a reaction.
So we have a crew member who is not
Cutting
settled.
it. Not cutting it.
When you think about it, Roddenberry must have had something against that navigator position because that's
Everybody, Balance of Terror.
pray to me.
Gary Mitchell.
Gary Mitchell was a
Balance of Terror.
navigator.
Navigators have issues
Yeah,
till they get to
Till they get the check off.
yeah.
Time to pray, Captain.
until they get to.
That's a navigator talking.
Well,
That's a navigator.
then too, behind the scenes, you've got to think they're still fishing for who's going to be a regular, who's not. And until Chekhov shows up, that navigator slot is kind of a rotating person of the week.
Yeah, that's the guest,
And
guest chair.
That and the yeoman slots is kind of like, is this person going to work? Is that person going to work?
The Yeoman in this episode.
Oh, she wanted to work. She wanted to work bad.
No,
she
no,
did. She
I
did.
think-
There you go.
nope,
See, you
yep.
took me with you. Back to Gotham.
Gotham.
What's wrong?
Wrong
with, no, well,
episode.
wait a second. Yeah, there was some little bit of you guys had some clarity issues there. But once again,
but
I
the
feel like
statement is-
I'm the only
but the
Yeoman
statement is-
Rand fan
Yeah.
on Men on Trek.
I'm not a big fan of Rand.
I don't dislike Rand. I don't dislike Rand. No,
Rand doesn't.
but I don't like Rand like you
Audio.
like Rand.
Just go ahead and hit the explosion. Or the red
Damage.
alert. Red alert.
Red alert or damage?
Damn,
Yeah, because I'm going there.
don't go there. Where you going?
Rand
Come back.
Rand don't have enough ooey factor.
Charlie, watch the Charlie X episode.
She still doesn't have enough ooey factor.
All right, we'll see. When we see Charlie X.
She's not comparable to Uhura.
Oh,
And if you're
no.
gonna put another woman up there, she's got to
what-
be in that zone.
And what the bad captain means by ooey factor actually is presence.
She must be a ooey.
It's the presence. It's not attractiveness so much as presence.
Unlike some newer movies from a different franchise, I want to see ooey. I don't want to see
You want
pink-haired.
You want presence.
I want some very, very good presents.
You want presence.
Yes.
Presents like gifts.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, but even though we jump ship a little bit, the yeoman and the navigator slot seem to be in rotation to try to figure out who's going to be a fit and join the ensemble cast through these early episodes.
Right.
He fits the story though.
He does.
As a new crew member who is dealing with the
Young
mission.
Young lieutenant just got his commission, just got promoted. Kirk has promoted him, we find out.
Right.
But he's green. Oh boy, is he green.
So when Kirk goes to the turbo lift and finds out that he's really not needed on the bridge,
He goes to
and he
change.
goes, okay, I'm going to go to my room and I'm going to get
Freshen
properly
up.
attired. Right.
I'll freshen up a bit.
Recover from the beating that McCoy gave
you
him.
ladies, there's another full scene of shirtless Shatner. Shirtless Kirk.
Sir William.
Sir William.
Sir William of no shirt.
Sir William of no shirt.
There you go.
Or in the episode, like, what was it? The Tim Allen movie. Galaxy Quest.
Galaxy Quest.
Another episode with his shirt off.
Yeah.
Shirt always gets torn. This time they just took it off.
You're very tickled by that, aren't you?
Well, you got to throw a bone. If I want ooh-wee, I got to throw a bone to those of the opposite sex.
There's ooh-wee for everybody.
Ooh-wee
It's
for
a
everybody.
ooh-wee safe zone. You can have your ooh-wee and eat it too. So the story, they blow by some time.
Oh my.
They blow by some time. The ship is held in place by this cube for a good 18 hours. Kirk calls a staff.
Did you see Sulu sleeping in the ready room? He's like slumped over on the.
Well, before the 18 hours, Kirk gets to the bridge, and then they try some maneuvers.
Try to go around it. Yeah.
They try some maneuvers and try to get around it and can't get around it.
Can't get around it.
The next scene after that, Styles asked for, not Styles, Bailey.
Bailey wants to shoot it.
He wants to say, well, let's
phaser it. He wants to phaser it.
right.
But that's in the staff.
Says
meeting.
I vote for phasering or
Yeah.
something, and Kirk
Kirk
goes,
says,
"Thank you."
Great.
And when this becomes a democracy, I'll listen to you.
I'll let you know. Right.
So that, once again,
Bailey's out of line.
right. This is not like your standard. What show would I use an example of? CSI, where everybody gets together and they have their little conferences and everybody inputs their thoughts. A team meeting. This is not a team meeting. You don't get. I don't want your thoughts. I'll give you what I want you to do.
Oh no, he wants their thoughts.
No,
but
when they get to the conference room.
when they have the staff meeting, he wants thoughts,
When they get to the staff meeting.
but he doesn't want them calling the shot.
But
Now,
this
when
is-
he's sitting in
but
the
thi-
center chair and
but
he's
this,
working,
right? This is on the bridge.
yeah.
Right.
And Bailey goes, "I vote that we shoot him."
Right.
And then Kirk
He said
responds.
we have phasers.
Kirk responds, "No, we got phasers, right? But
Right.
this is not a democracy.
Right.
I don't want to hear your opinion.
Nobody asked you.
Nobody asked you."
I like later on. He says, "Are you explaining yourself?" 'Cause
Yeah,
I
he
didn't-
really.
I didn't ask for an explanation.
Well, he tries to backtrack and tries to clean it
Well,
up
that's-
like he did with Spock.
Well, that's where Bailey makes another assumption. Yeah, they get to the staff meeting and everybody's kind of giving what they know, which is not much. They just know they can't get around this thing and they really don't know what it is. And Kirk says it's time for action. And Bailey, assuming he knows what action will be taken, goes, "Great, I'll call up the phaser crews." And Kirk looks at him and goes, "Did I say call up the phaser crews?" And Bailey goes, "Well, I." And as Jim said, Kirk's like, "I didn't ask you to explain. I'll tell you what to do." You know, he
So-
maintains command.
So this sets the scene. This is not a pleasure cruise. This is a military ship, although it's a ship designed for exploration.
Right. And another thing about, again, early episode, there's things they do in the earlier episodes that they kind of get away from later. In this episode, you understand this functions like a real vessel. The weapons are manned by people in other parts of the ship that you don't see. And what the guys on the bridge are doing is calling down and calling for fire. That's very clear here. Whereas when you get to other episodes, it seems like Sulu and Chekhov are firing the weapons from the console.
Oh yeah.
This is functioning like a naval ship. There's phaser crews, there's engineering crews. When you hit that button on the bridge and say something, there's a dozen people doing half a dozen things to make something happen. And they really bring that out in these episodes where you get the byplay on the people talking back and forth and what have you.
Right.
Well, we talked about it in Balance of Terror, where there's the coolant leak in the phaser control room, and Spock goes in there and he has to press like 8 different switches on 3 different consoles in order to get the
To fire that
phasers to
phaser.
fire.
Well, that's the thing manned normally by 2 guys.
Right.
But we jumped apart in the conference room, and you mentioned it. Sulu's just
He's out.
they've waited 18 hours.
Right.
They've been held by the cube
18 hours.
for 18 hours. So when you look at it, as far as the episode goes, the humans have not been quick to take military action. They've tried to get around it, could not get around it, and they waited for 18 hours, maybe thinking that some other ship or the alien who's control of the buoy would make their way to them.
Well,
They've waited patiently,
done a deep analysis, as
done
deep
a
as they
deep
can
analysis, scanned the area for other ships,
go. Right.
for other planets.
Looking for options.
Don't see anything. It's like we got to get around this thing.
Right. And they're not in immediate danger, so they don't take any hostile action.
But when they come there, Sulu's laid out, man. He's
Well,
sleeping.
You got to figure, when the episode opens, Sulu's on shift. It's probably crewed in the 8 hours. Sulu's on shift, middle of the shift, maybe the end of the shift. 18 hours later, because this thing has come up, you're still on duty. You know,
Well, I mean, it's his
that's
job.
realistic.
It's
That's
his
realistic.
job at that point.
that's realistic.
He's the number one.
right. He's the chief helmsman.
Mhm.
So he's not going to relinquish this to somebody else at this point.
Would you want somebody lesser?
No.
I agree.
Well, I wouldn't want a sleepy Sulu.
Yeah. But Sulu also seems to be,
Where's the stimulants? Remember those episodes?
yeah, they hadn't broke out the stimulant. Just coffee. Just replicator coffee, which is probably not.
What happens in that one? I forget which episode it is. It's the immunity factor, right? And
Yeah, because they can't go to sleep.
Yeah, and Kirk's like, hit me with another one of those. And McCoy's like, it's going to burn your brain out. You know? Hold me together for the next 10 minutes. That's all
Yeah.
he cared about.
Yeah.
So they decide that they got to get around it.
Right. They have to take some
We,
action.
we go through the issue with Styles, thinking he knows what the captain wants. And
Bailey.
Thank you.
Styles does know what's the captain wants.
Bailey thinks he knows what the captain wants and gets chewed out. And after 18 hours, Kirk decides we got to make a move. We're going to have to get around this thing.
Right.
So the scene switches to the bridge.
Right. And they fire up the engines, and they're going to try to outmaneuver it to no effect, and it begins to respond aggressively.
Yes. It does have defensive capability.
Well, you don't. It's not clear as if it was being defensive or just in the course of responding to them and what they were doing, it got close enough to be dangerous.
Well, it started
No,
to
it just-
emanate
yeah,
short,
yeah, it just
short
starts kicking out
frequency
radiation.
and then
It's
and then I think
increases.
it maxes out its output for radiation, and then just what's the thing in radiation? It's like distance, so then it just starts closing in. So
Right.
it maxes itself out with radiation, and it's tolerable, and then it just starts moving in, and those levels become intolerable.
It's crazy close, 120 meters from the ship.
I think it gets to like 50.
Yeah, it gets very close.
So they finally have to blast it.
Yep.
Although they did everything, because Kirk, when he says we're going to have to do something, he sets a spiral pattern around it, trying to get it from it. Then he actually started backing up, reversing and warp,
and go to warp in reverse.
and
yes.
still can't get away from it.
Yep.
So if it was your probe, you would say, well, these guys tried. They spent 18 hours sitting there, and then they tried to get away from it. Are these really the violent individuals?
I might say that they're weak and ready to be dominated.
Yeah.
But to your point, yeah, I mean, if somebody's watching, then yeah, you can say, hey, these people took non-violent actions.
To the extreme. Because I don't think I would have waited no 18 hours.
I probably would have tried the spiral course and maneuver away from it immediately rather than try to figure out what it was. But yeah.
What about you, Captain Palpatine? What would you have done?
See, it's tough because I kind of know that they are being watched, but I was thinking about 18 hours in like cosmic, in the scale of the universe and everything like that. 18 isn't. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, let's 18 hours.
You know, maybe a week or something. I mean, I probably would have had the crew just go about their business and go to bed and do all the rest of that
I'm
stuff.
not sitting there. They probably did 18 hours.
Well, we saw Sulu, you know, stretched out.
Well, yeah, the senior officers were definitely not resting,
I
but
bet you everybody else was sleeping.
everybody else was probably normal shifts.
I guess the way that I would have looked at it, and it's easy because, you know, we have hindsight and we know where the episode goes. But if I was trying to put myself in as being the captain and this is a buoy, why would you need a buoy if you could get to where the buoy is in a few hours? Like, to me, this seems like it would be like the outer marker on a huge territory. And maybe it takes a week for a ship to get there or something. But
Maybe.
I don't know.
I'm not sitting no week.
Well, in the course of this,
Especially seeing that you have warp capability. Whoever put the buoy out there, I mean, they're out there.
Right.
You would think they have at least comparable speed to you because there's no planet within scanning distance.
Well, because that's the other thing I'm thinking of. So I'm trying to put myself in that nobody's been out this far.
right.
How do I know that 5 light years, which might be, I don't know how many minutes that is, and
Star Trek
in
speeds, that's
warping.
nothing.
Yeah. There isn't an armada of 10,000 Death Star type ships. Like I guess I would I do anything differently? Probably not. But 18, when they said 18 hours, I was like, okay, well, it's a couple of shifts. But I mean, is that long enough to wait on the edge of the unknown universe for a response?
That was more than enough, seeing how there was nothing else out there.
Yeah, I can accept that. Yeah, I can accept that.
Well, they try the maneuvering. They can't outrun it. They can't get around it. They try everything. They push the engines really hard, push them harder later. But ultimately, as it begins to emit radiation and close the gap, they have a problem. You know, they're reaching lethal levels of radiation.
It becomes a life and death issue.
And Kirk decides it's time to use the phasers. And this is another one of those early eps, no photon torpedoes yet. And one of the things they tried early on when it first showed up, they were looking for the navigational deflector to move it away like it would an asteroid or anything else, and that didn't work. No mention of shields.
Right.
Shields is not a thing yet.
Yeah. And I always thought it was weird. If I was inventing the stuff or copying or stealing or I don't know what you want to call what Rod Mary did, I think the photon torpedoes were an easier
thing to come up with than phasers.
Because I don't know. Seems like you'd have photon, or you'd have torpedoes first before you'd have an energy weapon.
I don't think so. You're talking about science fiction, and the ray gun is the number one thing in space operas.
Yeah.
So the first thing would be something similar to a ray gun that the ship has, which would be a phaser cannon or some type of cannon.
And it's a naval ship in space, so they would a cannon of some sort.
Did any of those classic sci-fi, like Forbidden Planet, I don't remember that ship being armed with.
They show the crew being armed with laser weapons. They don't
Right.
show if the ship is armed or not.
Right. I think that was one of the things that they did.
But that's more Buck Rogers, where the ship is just a vehicle of transportation.
Well, Buck Rogers ships were armed.
And I'm talking about
Space 1999. The Eagles weren't armed, were they?
Some of them were.
The Eagles were armed. I didn't.
Some
know
of
that.
them were.
I'm talking not Buck Rogers, the newest one.
No, you're talking about the old school ones.
I'm talking about more the When I say Buck Rogers, I mean swashbuckling epic.
Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers. Those
ship.
ships were armed.
Yeah, but mostly they weren't armed for. Well, okay.
They were armed.
They had like it looked like rockets.
Yeah, in 1930 special effects, it was a puff of smoke and a sound.
Yeah.
But they were supposedly shooting at each other.
Yeah.
Puff. Not like a phaser.
But it wasn't true ship to ship battles. It was mostly the
Air to ground.
the individuals getting off the ship, going on to another ship. The swashbuckler epics and those people fighting, other than one ship blowing another ship.
Flash Gordon got to the ground by being shot down more often than not. But he wasn't a good spaceship pilot.
All right, so let's get back.
So radiation levels are climbing. The music is kicking in. Spock's counting. The tension is building. Kirk makes the decision to finally use the weapons. And when he gives the order, Bailey, because he's frazzled and nervous and
unfit. He's
uh,
unfit for duty.
I don't think we were just having this debate. But go ahead.
Bailey hesitates. Mr. Let's use the phaser finally gets the order, and he hesitates.
So I'm going to pick on that descriptive adjective, if that's what it is. There's no hesitation here. He freezes.
Okay.
And
freezes.
Sulu has to do it.
Sulu doesn't do that for him.
Oh, he doesn't do that one? Okay.
Sulu does something else for him when he's freezing up.
It takes Bailey a minute to target him. That's true.
Yeah.
Sulu doesn't do that for him. Later on, Sulu does something for him.
Is that or before or after Kirk shoots the mirror? I thought I'd jump into the confusion.
You wanted to go back to?
Yeah.
Different episode.
New rule for Men on Trek. Don't watch 2 episodes in one day. But
yeah, that's true.
Oh.
So Bailey finally targets the ship. Targets the
finally pushes the button to get the phaser banks to fire. And some other person in another part of the ship pulls the trigger. And the buoy is destroyed.
And what's interesting is they don't move. They sit there another period of time.
Checking the ship for damage.
And also seeing if anybody's coming out because the buoy's destroyed.
Right.
They don't, okay, it's gone, let's start moving.
Well, but there is something really good here when this happens. McCoy and Kirk begin to have conversations about Bailey. This is the first time McCoy kind of challenges Kirk about what he's done with Bailey, about promoting Bailey, and Bailey's not ready. But you get a rare moment of introspection here, even for Kirk. Kirk is beginning to kind of say, hey, we're out here on the ragged edge. Should we go back? Should we keep going? We don't know what we're going to run into. We have no idea. It's rare in the series because
his little mini conference with Spock.
That too.
Well, he asked Spock, do you think what's ahead of us? And Spock's like, well, probably the intelligence that sent the buoy. And he said, well, is a higher intelligence or different? And Spock goes, probably both.
Right. What's interesting here is how many times you see Kirk ever question the merit of going forward or the mission.
Well, the buoy.
But
the buoy sets a different aspect.
Well, plus he knows he's the first ship.
Right.
He doesn't want to be the first ship.
Right.
He wants to be the first ship.
He wants to be the second ship.
He's found a lot of data.
No, he wants to be the first ship, but it's safer to be the second ship.
But that's what's so good about this moment.
He wants to be the second ship.
We were kind of talking about it's a simple plot, but in this episode, you get some really good exposition from Kirk and McCoy and Kirk and Spock, in that you see that Kirk has supreme confidence in Spock. There's even a little thing where Kirk asks Spock some redundant questions, and Spock goes, do you ever get tired of asking me something you already know? And Kirk goes, it makes me feel better. Right? So Kirk's now talking to Spock earnestly about, should we go back? Should we turn around? Spock's like, no. But Kirk's having a moment of introspection. He needs somebody to kind of go, this is worth it, right?
Well, as a captain needs responsible for the crew.
But I think that was the thing about the writing, okay? Because instead of having a captain that's too strong or too weak,
right.
What was Kirk's real strength? His strength was that those 3 or 4 guys that he always had around him, he was always kind of making them a part of decisions and including them, and they wanted, and they became loyal, and they did that. His thing was leading those leaders on that ship. He didn't push them aside. He made sure that they were there, and he was constantly working on that relationship with them.
Yeah.
But before he gets to the decision of going forward or not going forward, that time after the beacon's destroyed, Bailey was slow on the phasers.
Mm-hmm.
And Kirk goes, okay, I want drills.
Right.
And I want you guys to run drills, of you to run drills and get our proficiency up.
And I
want it to be second nature.
That's awesome. That's an awesome response, because in a lesser written show, we were under a lot of pressure. It's okay. We got through it. They'd ignore it.
Yep.
This is a very realistic military response. We were in an emergency. The response was not up to par. You guys are going to drill it until it's right.
And that's where McCoy sort of has the
That's
point.
where McCoy gets into it with
because
him.
the captain is pushing his crew
Yeah.
to be better.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing too, I think, when you're dealing with the unknown like they were,
Got to be on top of your game.
not only that, but see, if he gave them the time afterwards to think about it, it could hurt confidence. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So in other words, instead of giving you some leisure time to think about how he almost got smoked by the Rubik's Cube, get back to work and start pulling on that oar.
Right.
Yeah.
When you start to become competent with your equipment and your position,
Confident.
then you have confidence. You're no longer worried about Rubik's or whoever's out there because you know what you can do.
Right.
The worst thing is having lack of information,
Yes.
not knowing.
Right.
So he replaces that and gives them something to do
Right.
so that their minds are not just focused on what just happened to them.
Right.
But this is the point where he was pushing them, and McCoy had the problem with Bailey.
It's the beginning of him questioning Kirk's judgment about
Right.
Bailey. Right.
Because Kirk had elevated Bailey to lieutenant, and McCoy thought that was too soon.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where Admiral Redshirt and I disagree. And I think it was a full disagreement. What was
Yes.
your point?
My point was I felt McCoy was right. I felt the context of the episode. Kirk had actually made a bad call concerning Bailey and moved Bailey up too soon, and Bailey was not ready.
Okay, this is my point, Captain Daystrom's point. I don't believe McCoy was right. I believe Kirk was right because you have to put people in a position and have them live up to it. You can't make everything safe. You can't make everything easy. We can't wrap children in bubble wrap to protect them. You have to give them an opportunity to grow. And there will be sometimes they don't make the grade. There'll be sometimes that they fall short. But you have to give them that opportunity. And when they get to that spot, you bring them back in. And that's what happens with Bailey. Later on in the episode, he just loses it. Kirk sends him off. Bailey reins himself back in after Kirk stops his tirade, and Bailey comes back better. So I don't think Kirk was wrong in letting Bailey get to that crunch part, because you don't get better unless you pick up the heavy weight.
There's a line there,
Well,
and I think McCoy's point was that Kirk was over that line, that Bailey just wasn't ready for this.
according to McCoy's idea.
So what I think is that they were both right.
No, you can't do that.
Yes,
gotta
you
pick
can.
one or the other.
No.
Well, let him
I'm
say.
not,
Where-
let him
where the
explain.
mis-
I'm not accepting that.
Let him
Where-
explain. Let him explain.
Where it starts to, it's Kirk was right in promoting, and McCoy was right in pointing out that it may have been too soon. To your point, you have to let people sometimes do things, okay? So where I would be critical and make a judgment is that when Bailey lost it, and he said, "You're relieved," okay? Kirk had to do that, whether he wanted to or not, because of how demonstrative of his panic that it was. But Bailey returns on his own.
That's the point.
So McCoy was right, and Kirk was right, and Bailey, when it came down to it, he
Proved Kirk. Correct.
right, but
He could
he
take
also proved McCoy right when he lost it.
Bailey didn't prove Kirk right. Bailey,
Ba-
we'll get there, but Bailey did not prove Kirk right.
See the point. The point is
Get on that mic. Get on that mic.
the point is that you can't make things too easy.
No,
People have to face pressure,
absolutely.
and they have to come to grips with the pressure and the position they're in. Now, was there a little fracture in Bailey?
Little.
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes, but you grow. Nobody goes straight through without a problem.
Bailey was off base from the beginning. From they roll the credits, they show Bailey.
Well,
Bailey's off track.
Kirk made a choice that McCoy pointed out, and McCoy said, "You see
A lot of yourself.
a lot of yourself in there." Say 11 years ago. Now he was very specific with that,
Young Lieutenant Kirk.
right? And he looked at him when he said that to him. And I think that Kirk had a realization that, okay, am I empirically looking at this guy objectively and promoting him? Or am I seeing a reflection of myself and pushing him at Kirk level?
Right.
And we all know that very few people are going to meet up. And I think that's the heart of what McCoy is saying.
Right.
He's not saying don't promote the guy, but what he's saying is that you're holding him to Kirk level, and there is no other Kirk but you. So I know what you want from your crew, but don't expect to get it from Mr. Bailey.
You hear that, Mark?
No, you got to give the guy an opportunity to live it.
Jim said I was right.
No, he didn't.
Did you hear? He just said it.
No, he didn't.
You're both right.
Play it back, Arthur. Jim
You're
said
both right.
All right, let's move
Well-
on. But that's a good character study.
It is. It
So
is.
you have the interplay between the doctor and the captain,
it's-
and McCoy is the emotional anchor,
the conscience, yeah,
the
emotional
conscience of
anchor,
the
yeah.
ship. He's actually the conscience of the captain,
Yes.
and Spock is the logic
And
of the
what-
captain.
What's interesting here is, even though this is pretty early in the series, you already know kind of McCoy will speak his mind. He's kind of a hothead sometimes. But this is different. This is McCoy's coming at Kirk kind of like, hey, you're wrong. And it's got a different tone, and that later in the episode, that comes even
Well,
further.
I think you see McCoy in the episode, and he takes it seriously. What he's doing is he's checking Kirk's ego throughout the entire episode.
Yeah.
The first thing where he doesn't tell him right away that the alert is going on, because maybe there's more important things, Captain, than what you just think.
Or maybe you should trust that your crew can handle some
Right.
things.
Then
without
he
you
checks him in his quarters when Yeoman Rand shows up with his salad. And he says, if I can get my hands on the person in headquarters that signed me a female yeoman. And he looked, without even missing a beat, he says, "What, you don't trust yourself?"
Yeah.
Like that, the entire episode, he's telling him, "Yeah, you're the captain, but you know what? Take a little bit of take a half step back, because you don't want to become, Captain Tracy."
Yeah, don't become Captain Tracy.
Tracy's a man.
No, he's not.
Tracy's a man.
No, he's not. But and what I liked about this episode is you kind of get that. This episode, another episode I was thinking about, we talk about captains going off the rails. And this is one of the few times where you see a chink in Kirk's armor, where you could actually see maybe Kirk could make a mistake. Maybe Kirk.
Oh, he came close.
Maybe Kirk could be.
Came real close.
Maybe Kirk could be one of those. Maybe he could be Tracy. Maybe he could be Garth or one of these other captains that lost it.
But what he did was, and throughout the episode, I know this is something that my fellow captain doesn't like, but jumping ahead, but what happens to Kirk is he slowly begins to lose the confidence of those key people around him. There's a conversation with him and Spock's like, "That's all I have," and he goes, "That's all you have," basically, and walks away from him. And you can see Spock starts to say, "I'm sorry." So now you've got your logic guy that you just basically said, "You're not giving me what I need,"
that you really depend on.
right? McCoy goes straight up with him and like, "I'm not bluffing you. I'm gonna take this the whole way." Kirk is starting to lose the support of those key people around him.
Well,
and that was where he was heading for a mistake.
That's because we jumped ahead, and the first, after they decide to move forward.
Well, we didn't go back to Gothos.
After they decide to move forward, after they waited that 2-hour period after they destroyed the buoy,
Check the damage.
they start going forward. Not too much after that. They start in the warp speed going forward. The first Federation ship.
The big yellow.
The Death Star.
No, it's not.
The Fusarian.
The half a star. The big yellow. Oh my goodness, it's huge. Orb ship shows up.
Yeah. And I still remember being a kid, and they show that perspective shot of the Enterprise, and it just keeps coming and coming and coming and coming, and then it feels the entire visual field.
George Lucas ripped off this episode so much.
Kathleen Kennedy's gonna come beat us up if you keep talking about that.
This is a Captain Daystrom. This is a classic Captain Daystrom line about the scale in Star Wars. So we went to go see episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and we're sitting there, and when they're in the little Jar Jar Binks submarine,
Yeah.
and those
the
creatures start
monsters,
coming
yeah.
out. And I just remember sitting
The
next
sea
to
creatures.
Mark, and he goes, everything's so massive in Star Wars. Everything's massive.
Yeah, Lucas Planet.
But the Viserys comes out, first Federation ship, and it's a ball,
Big yellow ball.
and it's huge. And the first thing it
Mile
does
across.
is hit them with a tractor beam.
Grab them.
So what does the other franchise do? They have a huge spherical object, and the first thing it does is
Tractor
hit them
beam.
with a tractor
It's
beam.
just a coincidence.
And it's so huge in both franchises,
it's
but Star Trek was
it's
first.
11 years later. It's
Well,
just
I
a
heard
coincidence.
Bailey go, that's not a moon. That's a space station.
And they told him to, and Sulu was like, "Shut up,
Shut up.
shut up."
Shut up.
It's
but-
huge. The first Federation is huge.
They say it's a mile across,
Mile in diameter.
mile in diameter.
Yeah.
So it's massive.
Yeah.
And again, the remaster is awesome because they give you a shot.
yeah, you can actually
The-
see the
The mechanics of it and the angle they take on the Enterprise, it's all really cool.
Yeah, because in the original, it looked like Christmas tree lights that
Yeah.
were just flashing, but you can actually see between the orbs.
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
see
it's
structures
good.
in there.
It's good.
So.
And just again, the camera angle they chose for the animation this time,
Do you think?
it looks
do you
really
think
cool.
that? Do you think that Balak used Wookiees to build that?
Possible.
but they get hit with a tractor beam.
Maybe the puppet originally
And-
had hair.
They're held in place.
Right.
Then they're scanned.
Not yet. The scan comes in a little bit. But but I don't want you to miss another Bailey fail, okay?
Okay.
The Aura pull the Viserys pulls in, it starts with an F. I keep wanting to start it with a V. The Viserys pulls in, they're caught in a tractor beam. They can't go anywhere. And Kirk gives an order, and Bailey's just sitting there with his mouth hanging
Says
open.
reduce
Look-
magnification of the viewer.
And that's when Sulu reaches over and does it for him because Bailey's checked out.
Yeah.
Bailey stinks, Mark. He stinks.
He's
Bailey's
He's
got
not
done.
qualified for the
no,
job.
he's got an opportunity to grow.
No, he got opportunity to go to the garbage scow.
No, you do not.
No.
You do not throw a man away that quickly.
You
Although,
Are you kidding me?
Although McCoy was afraid of Bailey's career going down the
Are you
toilet.
kidding
Ooh,
me?
yeah.
Are you kidding me? Bailey has contradicted orders, failed to follow a command, hesitated to fire phasers, and then he can't even reduce magnification timely? How many switches left open is that?
One, Bailey did not countermand or
Here's what I'm going to tell you. Bailey is still on that
He's
ship.
still on the Viserys.
He's still
That's
on
what
the
I
Viserys.
say. That's what I say.
Because every
Bailey
time they
never came back.
every time they contacted, it's
Yeah.
like, I'm ready to bring your man back, and they're like, nah, we're not available. Please
No.
leave a message.
No, you keep him. You keep him. He's a civilian now.
so Bailey's shocked at the
Ba-
massive size.
Bailey's
of
out. Bailey's out to
Viserys.
lunch because he's never seen the moon like that. He's out to lunch.
Yeah, he's just looking at, and the ship is massive, massive,
Yeah, it dwarfs the Enterprise. I mean, Enterprise is nothing.
and its strength, its ability is way beyond the Federation capabilities.
Yeah, because when
Kirk asks for mass, and Spock goes off my scales.
they come up with something like 5,000 and something.
No, he says that you can't. There's no.
Yeah, he says
Off
it's
my
off
scale.
scale.
No, I'm thinking about the length. They say 5,000 and something meters. They say over a mile in diameter.
Yeah,
But the mass was off the scale
yeah.
because the little shuttle pod for the Viserys was huge.
It was smaller than the Enterprise, though.
2,000 metric tons.
Yeah, still
2,000 tons for one cat.
Yeah.
That's pretty big.
Well, he had a bar and a lounge.
And
But-
and
So now the scans come. And the scans are so powerful that they're actually damaging the ship and they're just scanning them.
Mhm.
And Spock even says that in the course of being scanned that they're actually able to get control of some of the Enterprise's systems.
Yeah. shut
So
some
they're
systems
completely outmatched. Completely outmatched.
down. Yeah, it doesn't look good.
nope.
So
So there's always a bigger fish in the pond.
always.
You definitely learned that on a Lucas planet.
Roddenberry planet. Come back. Roddenberry
I'm
planet.
just showing you. He ripped it off.
Well, maybe. Roddenberry and Kurosawa. But So they pull in, they try to make contact, and you see the weird puppet looking thing, which always did look like a puppet.
No. First they hail it, nothing happens, and then our buddy Bailey's got an earpiece in, and he's like, "There's something coming in over my navigation signal."
Oh, that's right.
And then like, okay, put it on audio.
No, Kirk turns to Uhura, bring that up.
Yeah.
She goes,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
And then we hear Belak.
Balak. Captain Balak.
Balak.
Of
You're
the
right,
Viserys.
Belloc.
Balak.
And he says, hey, you guys have destroyed my beacon. You entered Federation space.
We are the first Federation.
And you're dead.
Yeah.
But we're gonna give you. We scanned you, and we see that you have a belief in some deity or deities that may comfort you. So you got 10 minutes to get down on your knees and
Pray to
Time to pray, Captain. Pray to me.
Yeah, you have 10 minutes to make your peace.
you're
However
be
you-
dead.
However you make your peace.
dead.
I don't know.
I
Come
want
back.
you-
Come back.
I want you dead.
Come back. No, but so yeah, they get 10 minutes to live, and the pressure is building.
The pressure is building. This
The
is when
heat is on.
McCoy comes in and he starts to talk to the captain.
He lets him know. He says, Balak's message went through the entire ship.
Right.
Yeah,
And
everybody knows we got 10 minutes.
Kirk makes a message across the entire ship that, hey, this is our job to go out here and meet new life
Face the
forms and
unknown.
face the unknown and not to let fear get the better of you. Things are just unknown yet. And we're working our way through.
Yeah, we're gonna.
And he
figure
also
it out.
says, we in our experience that most of the civilizations that are capable of space travel, in the end of it, they're usually pretty peaceful, like the Klingons and the Gorn
And the
the
Romulans.
Romulans, and the Doomsday Machine.
Yeah.
That was really peaceful.
Yeah.
But he also says something that's really cool. He says generally the real enemy is us. He says we just have to overcome our fear.
And Bailey proves that.
Yeah.
They have a shot where Scotty, Scotty's one of the guys who's been around for a while. Most of
Yeah.
the crew members come off as being sort
Pretty-
of young.
pretty seasoned,
There's
yeah.
not the senior officers. And you just see Scotty smiling, just going like, just giving them the old,
The old
Pep
rah,
talk.
giving the old pep talk.
the old rah rah rah.
Yeah, because there were screams coming up that turbo lift. Because McCoy, when it was like, when the door opened here,
So as a side note, you're an ensign and you're on a ship and you've been given 10 minutes.
Here we go. Here we go.
damage.
Here we-
There's the damage.
My question is, do you wait patiently or do you find that other ensign that you have a crush on and try to make something happen? You only got 10 minutes. Better work fast.
That's barely enough time to tell her how pretty she is.
No, you can say that real quick. You just did it.
No,
Hey,
no,
baby,
no.
you pretty.
No.
Is that a question?
10 minutes. I think I'm
Sorry.
gonna.
That's for the audience.
All right. In the comments, what are you doing with your last 10 minutes to live on the Enterprise?
I'm hot wiring the Galileo.
You're under a tractor
You're all
beam.
gonna, you're all gonna die.
remember-
I'm not.
Remember, the message buoy didn't make it.
That's right.
Remember,
That's right.
the message buoy didn't make it.
If it got hit with a particle weapon or energy weapon and it exploded the Enterprise and you were in the Galileo, would you survive? Because that would be my chance.
No.
No, you gotta bust out of that hangar.
You
bay.
think so?
The whatever beam the Viserys shot at the message buoy was so massive that it shook the Enterprise.
The Enterprise, the Enterprise was bouncing around from a near miss. I mean, so
Whatever they shot that took out the message buoy rocked
Now-
the whole ship.
now, Jim, if you're really gonna, there's multiple shuttlecraft. You can talk some other guys into leaving with you, play the averages,
Nah,
but that's not
I
a
think
warp
I would
capable
rather
ship.
do that than just be at my post and wait.
that's why I asked the question. Hit the music.
in the room.
Hit the
Well, we know what you'd be.
No, I'm asking you
Where's-
the question.
where's
Don't
my-
put those evil thoughts on me.
Where's
I'm
Mark?
asking you people.
Where's
Put them
Mark?
on you.
Where's
you,
Mark?
you
Where's
walked
Mark?
in with them.
Where's Mark? I can't find him.
Oh, yeah, you got 10 minutes.
Bridge to Daystrom, fire. Bridge to Daystrom, fire. Where are you, Daystrom? But again, how serious are Starfleet careers? In the face of imminent doom, and the thought that maybe a recorder might be found at some point, McCoy comes to Kirk and goes, "Can we amend the kids? Can we amend the kids' service records so it doesn't look
Well,
bad?"
he hasn't had his last blow up yet, so
Yeah.
they're waiting for the 10 minutes, and then Sulu is counting
Sulu just starts counting.
down, and everybody else seems pretty,
George
reserved.
Takei talked about that in an interview. First season, he's like, I did stuff like I counted and I was just there and I acknowledged the captain's orders and that was what they let me do.
But it seemed, when you look at it from an acting standpoint, it seems so minor. But when you add it into the overall flow of the episode,
It built the tension.
it built the tension. And it's like, man, Sulu's, he's not breaking down. It doesn't seem like he's acting or doing much as an actor.
Right.
But when you
But
look
it's
at the
integral to the story.
ensemble cast,
Yeah.
you're like, man, you start adding in your own mind, man, Sulu's calm.
Yeah, I think I agree with you.
He's counting.
I think that George Takei was way underestimated as far as his ability to act. If you see him, like I remember he was in the Green Berets,
Yeah.
and I remember seeing him play that character, and I'm like, that's not Sulu. Like I knew it was the same. I knew it was the same actor, but the character was so different. And it's like when you see Sulu,
Captain Nim.
Sulu to me was like anytime he did something, I didn't have to think about it. Like I bought 100%.
Yeah.
There are times when Chekhov was saying and doing things, and I was kind of like, he's good. But
Yeah.
George Takei was just like he just wore that so well.
There's an interesting point. When Sulu went to do the Green Berets, that was coming into the second season of
He was late getting
Star
back.
Trek. He was late getting back. And they brought in Chekhov, and they gave a lot of the new stuff that was supposed to go to Sulu
To Chekhov.
to Chekhov.
I didn't know
and
that.
George
Yeah.
Takei was very upset for several years about that very
It took
very
him.
thing.
It took him a long time to warm to Walter Koenig because of it. Yeah.
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 But the little lines he has
Are very effective.
are very effective. You're like, man, this is an officer. He's all in. Now, Bailey,
Meanwhile,
the new lieutenant,
Beetle Bailey. Kick
Well,
out.
think about this.
has a full blown meltdown.
But think about this before we leave Sulu. In Mirror Mirror,
Yeah.
like
He's owning it.
he makes that episode. He makes that alternate universe.
Scary.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Because everyone
he's
else.
the threat.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He's the threat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. He's the threat. Spock's not even the threat. You don't
No.
you don't get that from Spock in that
No.
episode.
Right. Sulu's the guy you're afraid of.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yes, absolutely.
Security chief.
So keep counting. Keep counting.
So
Sulu.
Bailey has
Keep
his
counting.
meltdown. Sulu's counting down.
Yeah.
And Bailey goes, are you people human? We're about to die here.
What are you, toy soldiers?
We're about to die here. And he just goes off the rails.
He's pleading with everyone. He's like, "Why is this guy over here counting?"
Don't you know when you're dying?
And the doctor tries to step in,
Right.
and McCoy's
The
singing.
end of everything.
The-
What are you, robots?
And-
Wound up toy soldiers?
And
Don't you know when you're dying?
And McCoy tries to intervene, and it doesn't happen. And then the captain's got to jerk his chain.
I want somebody to smack him.
And as soon as the captain goes, "You're relieved," Bailey.
Well, he
snaps
knows.
too. Yeah, he's like, I've let my emotions get the better of me.
It's my career.
That's right.
It's my
Just say goodbye to my own command.
It comes to his mind. Oh my God, I left the atomic
If I
pilot.
live- I just talked myself into civilian life. If I live,
No, I
That's
talked
right.
myself out of never being a captain.
That's right.
oh no,
They'll keep you on the ship.
no,
yeah.
that.
Well, they'll put him somewhere else.
Have fun on your way back to Earth, kid. It's been nice knowing you. No,
Oh
no.
yeah, man. Ooh,
Unfortunately, we don't have a ship that's going directly back to Earth,
Oh,
but we
man.
do have a supply ship that's stopping at Rura Pentay.
If you have the ability to freeze frame that, you look at how Kirk's looking at him.
This is a point I actually wanted to make. Was
Uh-oh.
that I don't know if we've been talking about it as much
Lieutenant
as we
Commander.
should. is like from the very first scene where he's doing the physical.
Right.
It's like it's building tension because for what comes, I feel like they had to really make a good excuse for Kirk to do what he ends up doing, where he kind of loses it. And like I was going to talk about it earlier, but when he's in his quarters with McCoy, or first when they're in the elevator, he's like, he like quotes McCoy, and McCoy's like, no, I never said that. Then they get in the room, and again he quotes McCoy, and McCoy's like, never said that either. And then McCoy was like, what are you going to do with that 6%? And he's like, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to shove it. And then Yeoman comes in right there.
Right.
So they're like, over time, they're building, like,
Kirk's stressing.
Kirk's having a bad day.
Yeah, Kirk's
right?
stressing.
Yeah.
And then this right here, once he relieved Bailey, it's like,
Well, you know what I
Yeah.
think it is that he's had a realization that maybe McCoy was right,
Yeah. McCoy was right.
McCoy wasn't right.
and that he did push this guy too far, and the reason he's on his bridge at this moment falling apart is because of
Because he's unfit.
McCoy wasn't right.
Should be downstairs with a mop.
So
Not driving the ship.
what Lieutenant Commander Arthur is brought into some points that we skipped. That when McCoy was having a conversation with Kirk, and Rand comes in with the salad, Kirk is making statements
I'd be angry too if I got a salad.
that McCoy he addressed to McCoy, and McCoy said that wasn't me.
Do you think Roddenberry went to the writers and said, "Listen, Sir William's starting to let's put the diet thing in the script so that he gets the message."
Well, he's still in shape in this episode.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
All right, let's not go. We hit so many tangents. This man on track, but let's stick with it. So the tension is building up on all of them. Kirk is trying to stay calm when he's as the captain because he's trying to figure a way out, but
there
there's
is no way
nothing
out.
they can do
Right.
to the First Federation. They can't fight their way out. Every time he's tried to talk to the First Federation, they don't want to listen.
They say we're going to kill you.
There's nothing he can do about it. Now, Bailey snaps, and Kirk's looking at it, and he's like, oh, he's trying to.
He's got nowhere to go.
He's got nowhere to go. Now,
He's used to having somewhere to go.
now this is not like Captain Tracy
This is a real Kobayashi.
who's the captain of
Decker.
New Yorktown? Decker.
Decker.
Where those guys completely break. Kirk also cracks a bit when you get into as the time is going down. McCoy comes back up to the bridge, and then McCoy and Kirk have a confrontation. So McCoy's looking at it about Bailey's career, and I don't know why he's thinking about Bailey's career when they're all about to die.
I told you, even in the afterlife, a bad career determines.
So McCoy's they're just operating by rote. McCoy comes in and goes, look, I'm a show in my report.
McCoy's actually thinking if somebody finds this, Bailey, even in death, will have a black mark. That's what he's thinking.
There's nobody to find it.
They find
there's a second
everybody.
ship.
They find everybody
They
else.
blow up the beacon. There's nothing. Nothing will
well,
tell you what went on there.
No,
They still probably filed a flight plan. And where
they
were
find
going.
everybody. Somebody will find them. Somebody will find a piece of the
shit-
Enterprise. And
I think what it was what was getting McCoy at this point is that Kirk looked like he was losing his ability
to be objective.
to be objective.
Yeah.
Because what's great about the writing in this episode, it's not until Kirk calms down that he can figure out a way on how to, because you're right, he kept building and building and building, and he was pushing people away from him, and his officers were starting to lose their cool, and he throws them off the bridge, and you're not going to, he wasn't solving any problems then.
No.
It's only when it got to a point where he literally says to McCoy, he yells at him, and he says, when you think you can bluff me,
Well, yeah, that's
and then all of a sudden it hits him. But he was that close. He was that close to making a big mistake.
Well, like I said, the thought was McCoy trying to preserve what was left of Bailey's career, because as we stated on Men in Track, one mistake and you're technically done. Yeah, swirling down
the
down
drain.
down the drain. So McCoy's like, look, I'm showing my report. Said, look, don't what are you going to do with the report?
Right.
What are you going to do with the report? What are you going to say about Bailey?
Yeah, he wanted him to just put it down to fatigue.
Right. And McCoy's like, what? Or Kirk's like, what I put in my report is what I put in my report. And that what didn't satisfy McCoy.
Oh, McCoy said, no, I'm going to challenge you on this one. My report will say something different.
You pushed him too far.
Right.
And then the confrontation, which the build up emotion, because time is ticking.
It's been a good 24 hours by now.
Time is ticking. And Kirk goes, well, if you...
And everybody's counting. Sulu's counting. Balak's counting. Everybody's counting. 2 minutes.
So Kirk goes, look, you can't bluff me. And as Admiral Captain Palpatine says, it clicks in his mind. And he turns to Spock and he goes, no, not chess. Poker. This is all he's got left. I've got a Hail Mary pass. And all it's going to do is technically buy us time. So he says, open me a channel. And then Balak, as normal, when he starts to speak, Balak starts speaking over him. And he goes, no, we got to, but we're
obligated to tell you
this.
Because we value life.
Because we value life, but we don't care about our own life. So if you just try to destroy us, the Corbomite device.
That is not in our records because Kirk remembered they scanned him.
Will turn around and destroy you. Now.
It's an equal force multiplier.
Yep. Do your worst. And then everybody's sitting there. And
we tire of your foolishness.
Right. And then Bailey comes back after he recuperates.
Bailey comes back like a little kid. Can I come die on the bridge with you?
And Kirk looks at him and says, yes.
Yeah. Take your blankie and sit at the helm. Little Bailey, who's not qualified.
Take your place, son. you went through the crucible. You're now better.
He's not better. Stick your thumb in your mouth and get ready to get incinerated.
So the bluff works, and Balak says, I'm going to send away the Viserys, and I'm in this scout ship, and we're going to tow you to a planet.
Hold on, before he goes there, he says, prove to us you have this device.
Oh, yeah.
And Kirk says, bump you.
First, when they call back, after the time limit is up and they don't get destroyed, Bellick calls back, and then Uhura's about to put him on, and Kirk goes, "No, let him sweat, let him sweat." Then he says, "Okay, let him talk," and he goes, "Well, prove this. You got your device." And Kirk's like, "Nah,
request denied."
I forget you.
Yep, request denied. So then Bellick sends away the Viserys.
Viserys. They're doing the same thing I'm doing.
The Viserys, and comes out with a little shuttle that's got more power, it seems like, than the Enterprise.
Even though it's smaller, yeah.
And
they start dragging the ship.
Puts them on a tow because, according to the First Federation, we're going to destroy the Enterprise, but we're going to let you get off on a planet.
Right.
An M-class planet.
Yep. Rigel 5.
They don't say.
City Alpha.
City Alpha 5. There we go.
Kirk and company beam down, and Khan's like, baby.
So
welcome to the show.
So they're being towed by the smaller ship.
Yeah.
And as they're being told, Enterprise does nothing. They're just going with the flow
for a while.
And then Spock makes I think Kirk makes mention that the power output has got to be huge.
Right. And to look for a drop.
Then they see one in not Chekhov. Sulu says
they're pulling away.
Our speed is decreasing.
Yeah, down to 0.64 of light.
Our speed's decreasing.
So they're actually moving at impulse speed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then Kirk puts some maneuvers in place that at the right time they can sort of break away.
Right.
Because they want to overtax. They understand that the smaller ship is overtaxing itself, pulling the Enterprise.
Potentially, yeah. And so they build the engines up to dangerous levels, waiting for their moment. And they crank up the engines and crank up the engines and crank up the engines. And Spock's like, Spock's quoting Scotty, we can't take much more of this. And the engines build up. And eventually they make their move. And again, the remaster's cool because in the old episode, they talk you through all this and they try to show the Enterprise breaking away. But the remastered cut is really nice. They show the Enterprise cut a nice move, and they show people getting bounced around in the hallways and all that good stuff. And the Enterprise does break away, and the small ship, the tug, loses power and goes adrift.
Apparently. So they're free now.
Yeah.
They could just book it. But Kirk goes, no, we're out here to the opening credits.
Seek out new life.
Seek out new life. And he tells McCoy to come with me.
Although Bailey can't handle the boldly part.
Well, at first, Uhura gives them some reassurance. Belloc sent out a message, but I don't think the Viserys could have heard it. Now they're like, oh, well, we'll go over there and say hi. But if the Viserys was like, we're coming back, I think they would have booked it.
Oh, also in the breaking free, that the Enterprise engines are damaged.
Oh, yeah, they almost blew
and
them
they
up.
need 2 hours to repair their own systems.
They almost blew it up that time.
Because breaking free from this smaller ship. So Kirk says, okay, we're going to go over and we're going to seek out this new life.
Rescue
Bailey,
Baylock.
you wanted to...
you want to come along?
You want to come along. And McCoy, because we need to see about this person who's going to kill us.
Yeah. I think I just would have saw about some phasers.
So they go down to the transporter room, and Scotty tells them, you need to bend over because it's a little tight in there. And he transports Bailey, McCoy, and Kirk over
to the little ship.
And the first thing they do when they get in, they walk around and they see the dummy.
They find the dummy.
And we see a little child, little cherub.
Clint Howard, Ron Howard's little brother.
Yeah.
We see a little cherub.
Didn't know that until Jim brought it up.
Sitting on his little Roman sofa.
Yeah. Even wearing like a little laurel.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
Something about this, even when I was a kid, he looks weird.
He looks weird.
Even by Star Trek standards, there's something disturbing about him.
Well, Lieutenant Commander Arthur points out how eerily accurate the lip sync is.
The voiceover.
That was the issue.
Yeah,
That's what made it so
the
creepy.
The voice coming out of the little baby is
but the whole look of it is just off-putting.
It's difficult.
The whole look of it is
doesn't fit your
off-putting.
human norm.
Mm.
The whole look of it is off-putting.
It's the same thing when we talk about looking at a 3D generated image of a person. Since the skin imperfections in humans cause the light to reflect differently, when you look at the 3D image, which is smooth, you're off-put by it.
I think adolescent Keith was just trying to reconcile the fact that it was not a midget, and yet there was a grown-up voice coming out of it, and something was just off.
See, I thought for years it was a midget.
I did too. When I was a kid, I didn't think it was a kid that they voiced over. That didn't occur to me. I thought it was a midget, but it was just something wrong.
And I think the voice was the guy who was on the Mirror planet in the beginning.
Yeah.
The counselor that says, "Give us a year, 10,000 years," is the same voice.
I think so. Voice of the time machine in City on the Edge of Forever too. I think.
Yeah. But I remember being a kid and just mimicking that line. This is Tranya. I hope you relish it as much as I.
Now, we had a debate about Tranya.
Whether it has.
Look at Kirk and Bailey's face.
Whether it was alcohol.
You're going to be wrong twice.
Look at McCoy. I don't think it's alcohol.
You're going to be wrong twice
McCoy's
in one
face
episode.
Is screwed up. Watch.
Look at Kirk and Bailey.
I think there's opiates. I think it's. I don't.
Tranya.
I think it's narcotics. Because watch.
Tranya has some bite to it. Look at Kirk and Bailey's faces.
No, Kirk's positive. Now watch McCoy's.
Watch
look
McCoy.
at yeah.
But you gotta wait. You gotta
Watch
wait. But where he finishes, he's like, "That's opium." That's what he was.
Tranya's got some zip to it.
Tranya's got zip.
Tranya is.
So what
I think it was Tang though. It looks
it's
like
probably
papaya
Tang.
juice.
It's probably Tang or papaya juice in real life. But
what you find out is the little shuttle is not damaged.
No,
Nope.
right. It's all a
This
test.
whole episode is a test of the violent nature of mankind.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And Enterprise gets through the test.
Yeah.
Barely.
Oh, the statement of him and his dummy Jekyll, Mr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Right.
who's truly the good guy, who's truly the bad guy.
Right.
Well, he says, look at me. I wouldn't intimidate anybody.
Right. He knows.
I
It's
don't
a-
know. It's a
an
terrible nightmare. A baby with an ungodly ship.
Yeah, I'm disturbed by the midget with the giant ship.
I'll be like, ah!
I'm disturbed.
Like Bailey. That's worse than seeing a giant monster.
Yeah, you can handle that.
Because the First Federation ship is off the chain.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the Enterprise had nothing they could
You
do
know-
about it.
What's kind of criminal? Of all the stuff the later Trek shows went back and picked up again,
They didn't do anything
that
with
the First Federation is never addressed again. This should have been a game changer. First contact with them should have been a game changer for the.
Well, if the First Federation actually did exist, he may have made that up.
He may have. He may have just been one guy.
He's just
left-
one guy out there having a good time.
But even the tech he has, that should have been a game changer.
Yeah.
No, according to the official guide, the First Federation is within the Federation territory. They assume that area.
They go around it.
They don't gain their technology, but they assume.
They go around
That
it and
area.
expand around
Yep.
it. So they're out there. I remember.
Ted Cassidy, who played Lurch, was the voice of Balak.
That's why it's so familiar.
Yeah.
That's
The
why
deep
it's so familiar.
voice was Ted Cassidy,
Oh,
who played Lurch.
Lurch.
Okay.
Well,
So
and that's Corbomite.
yeah. Now I remember again
No, we can't be done until he drops Bailey off.
permanently.
Bailey's still out there.
So having passed the test, they want to the Balak wants to open up a cultural exchange.
Well, what you find out is, as massive as his ship is,
He's alone.
he's alone. So as we were talking about the ultimate computer, they have a computer system that can run that massive ship with just one guy. So he's alone. Man, the holodeck on that ship got to be off the chain.
Apparently not, because he's lonely.
Well, he wants real. He wants somebody real.
There's no holodeck.
Oh, I have a holodeck.
It's all guns and it's all guns and sunflowers. But so Balak looks at Kirk and goes, "Can you leave a crew member to spend some time with me?" And Kirk goes, "I got just the guy."
Nope.
Don't I,
Yeah, I
Balak?
thought I heard Balak.
Don't I?
I thought I heard Balak Sanders' voice. He looks delicious.
Yeah, I got this cookbook.
I got just
How-
the guy.
To serve man.
How to serve man.
To serve man. It's a
No.
cookbook.
No, Kirk looks at Bailey like, Bailey's like, "Well, yeah, I guess I'm."
You can hang out here on the one man ship, or you can go to jail.
or you can go start your life as a civilian.
Bailey volunteered for the good of the Federation.
Bailey volunteered because he had no choice.
Mhm. He was voluntold.
Voluntold, yes. And I personally believe that was the last anybody ever saw Bailey.
Yeah. And Balak says, "So you represent the finest of humans?" And he goes, "No, I'll make a lot of mistakes." And Kirk looks at him and goes, "That's not funny. That's why you're here."
Kirk goes, "Yeah, and that's why you're staying."
right.
The power of a starship captain.
Bailey probably inherited for Sirius.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
Bailey
look
was
at the
never
baby-
her.
Look at the little baby laugh. He
Baby,
inherited.
I don't want to look at that baby. That baby's still scary after all these years. No, Bailey went into First Federation space and was never heard from again. Thus ends the career of the unqualified.
We
Bailey.
should put, like they put at the end of the episode, in memory of
in memory of Bailey.
Lieutenant Bailey.
Lieutenant Bailey, absolutely.
Memory.
But I remember, again, the reruns. I thought growing up this was the last episode of the series. The way it plays out, the way it ends, and the order they used to show the reruns in, I used to think this was the last episode of the whole series.
Wow.
That was very early.
It's very early.
Very early.
But they didn't show them in any kind of real season order in the reruns, and I used to think this was the last episode. Because it's kind of such an open-ended ending. It's kind of like, and they went off and they continued to explore.
Yeah, but it fits the overall motif of the
It does.
show
It does.
to go out and explore where no man has gone before
Right. Absolutely.
and
Right.
find new life.
Mm-hmm.
It fits the motif very well.
Yeah.
Corbomite maneuver, showing that even Kirk can crack under pressure.
Get close.
Get close.
Yeah, man. Being a starship captain ain't no joke.
No. No
It's
joke.
a lot of pressure.
No
Bailey
joke.
will never know.
But see, there's so much out there in this universe that is greater than you. They run into more people that are more powerful than them than they do anybody lesser than them. Oh, they come across a planet or two, and McCoy jokes about saying I'm the Archangel Gabriel.
Gabriel, yeah.
But a lot of times they run into cats that are far more powerful than they are.
That was one thing I remember with my daughter. We were trying to watch all the Enterprise, with Archer,
Mm-hmm.
and there was an episode where Archer was back on Earth, and he was with a female captain, and they were rock climbing or something, and she was kind of coming from how exciting and exploration and all this other stuff, and he's like, you know what's out there? They will break it off on you, and you know what we have?
Nothing.
and I remember I was like, that's when that series sort of like
Got interesting.
tipped for me, because it was like he went out there as like the Boy Scout, and,
Yeah, we're gonna
with the chef
explore.
and iced tea and everything, and he comes back and he goes, "Don't stick your head out the window, because somebody will shoot it off."
No, he didn't go out as a Boy Scout. He went out as an arrogant little kid because he was so mad at the Vulcans
For holding them back.
Vulcans were trying to do him a favor.
He thought we are able, and they went out there and got a foot broken off on him because the Vulcans are like you say, trying to protect you. You don't know what's out there. It's like when Q knocks the Enterprise
into the
beta quadrant. And then they run upon the Borg, and the Borg breaks a foot, and Picard's mad at Q because they lost a couple of
They lost quite a few.
they lost some crewmen during that.
Oh yeah.
And Q was like, "You told me you could handle it.
So I let you handle it.
Handle it, John Luke. It's not a picnic out here, man. There's some guys out here that will do you some hurt."
Mention that name. Ugh.
Who, John Luke? Or Q? Or Borg?
No, that
The whole
not a captain.
Oh my! Oh my!
the whole point in the Star Trek universe
I want to spit.
is not that they are the best. They're not the best of what's out there.
The strongest.
They're the best of what the Federation can send.
Right.
Yeah, the best of what humanity has to offer.
But that's not the top dog.
No.
There's always a fish bigger than you, right, Lucas?
Well, you're obsessed with the Lucas. You're obsessed.
So, Men on Track, Season 2, Episode 2.
Yes.
Yes.
I have to start counting all over again.
Corbomite.
Corbomite maneuver.
Corbomite.
Do you think you can bluff your way out of it? Do you think you have it within you to gamble on this last ditch effort?
No, I have it in me to get in the Galileo.
To bail from your ship?
Yes.
Captain
Yes.
Daystrom?
Yep.
He's your Daystrom.
Oh, that's right.
Does that mean you're going?
Palpatine.
Does that mean you're going
That's
with
right,
him?
Captain
Palpatine.
Palpatine.
You'd be sitting right next to me flipping switches.
No, I
You're
don't.
like, we're out of here.
No, I'm not going down. I'm not sitting and wait for you to destroy me. I'm opening up phases. We're gonna die, but I'm going for it. I'm going for it.
You fight, I run.
I might have legitimately tried to overload the warp core and try to take him down. If
You
I
would have
really thought-
suicided.
Maybe. Yeah, if I really thought he was going to take me out.
No, I'm not suiciding. I'm not running. In the words of Shakespeare's Macbeth, there are hacks. There are bodies that bear hack better than my own.
Yeah.
You want to win me? Achieve me.
Achieve these bones.
That's Henry V. But I'm going down swinging.
I am too, but I'm trying to finish up with a warp core breach if I have to. I mean, if that's what's going to come down to. But Kirk handled it the best. He stuck to diplomacy and showed that there was a better way.
That's what the writing said.
No, it's pretty consistent for his character.
That's what the writing said.
That's what the writing said. You just would have been trying to futilely fire phasers on that giant yellow ball and hope you hit something important.
I would have launched one of the warp core and
You only got one.
and shot it.
It's the old Enterprise.
Season 2, Episode 2.
In the
Man on
bag.
Track.
In the bag.
Click
Man on
like and
track.
subscribe.
Yeah. Answer all these questions in the comments. Make some comments.
Once again,
We like comments.
you got 10 minutes. What you gonna do with it? You got 10 minutes.
Just cut it right there. All right. And we're out of here.